The shattering silence, when they hurt you and act like nothing happened. They shattered your soul and walked away like it was nothing. No apology, no explanation, just silence, like your pain didn't even register. And you sit with that silence, trying to make sense of how someone could cause so much damage and still sleep peacefully at night. But this isn't just about heartbreak. This is about betrayal, about the kind of hurt that makes you question your worth, your memory, even your reality. This is psychological warfare wrapped in emotional detachment. And if you've ever felt it, you know how dangerous silence can be. Why it hurts so much. The invisible injury. It wasn't just what they did. It was the way they pretended it didn't matter. You expected accountability, a conversation, some recognition of your pain. But instead, they gaslit you with indifference. Carl Jung once said, "Shame is a soul-eating emotion, and nothing activates shame quite like being hurt and then dismissed. It creates an invisible wound, not just in the heart, but in the mind. You start to wonder, am I overreacting? Maybe it wasn't that bad. Did I imagine the whole thing?" This is where their silence becomes your prison. The psychological disconnection, why they can hurt and walk away. Here's the raw truth. 1. They lack empathy. Not everyone is wired to feel guilt the way you do. Some people, especially narcissistic or avoidant personalities, are deeply disconnected from your emotional world. They can cause harm without registering that harm. Why? Because if they acknowledged it, they'd have to confront their own shadow. Jung taught people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. So instead, they avoid you. They rewrite the narrative. They deny your experience, because accepting it would mean accepting their darkness. 2. Avoidance is their survival mechanism. Many people were raised in emotionally unsafe environments. They were never taught how to repair conflict, only how to escape it. To them, silence is easier than apology. Detachment feels safer than vulnerability. So when they hurt you, they don't face it. They flee it, not because you don't matter, but because they don't know how to hold emotional truth. That doesn't excuse it, but it explains it. 3. You were a mirror, and that scared them. Sometimes, you weren't just a partner. You were a mirror, reflecting back the parts of them they tried to suppress. And when you stood in your truth, when you asked for more, when you demanded accountability, they couldn't handle the reflection. So they shut down, walked away, pretended nothing happened. Not because they didn't hurt you, but because deep down, you revealed their truth. And that terrified them more than losing you ever could. What happens to you? The victim's silent spiral. Let's talk about what happens inside you after someone breaks you and acts like nothing happened. It's not just sadness, it's dissonance. You ask, why can't I stop thinking about this? Why do I feel so invalidated? How can they be so calm when I feel shattered? This creates a psychological loop. You want to move on, but you can't, because you haven't been witnessed. And in the human psyche, we need witnessing to heal. We need someone to say, yes, I see what happened to you. You're not crazy. Without that validation, you start trying to get it from the very person who hurt you. You chase clarity from chaos. And that's when the trauma bond takes hold. The soul's desperate bargain. You tell yourself, maybe if I stay calm, they'll come back. Maybe if I don't bring it up again, they'll love me like before. Maybe I am too sensitive. You make yourself smaller, more agreeable, more silent, just like them. This is the soul's desperate bargain. Let me abandon myself, so they won't abandon me again. But they already did, and no amount of silence will save what was already sacrificed. Carl Jung's warning, when you betray yourself. Carl Jung warned that what remains unconscious will control your life. So, here's the dangerous truth. When someone hurts you, and you don't allow yourself to fully feel, breathe, and confront it, that pain buries itself in your shadow, and later, you attract more of the same. You repeat the pattern until your nervous system believes pain is love. But it doesn't have to be this way. The first step toward wholeness, you don't need them to apologize for you to begin healing. You don't need them to acknowledge what they did for you to reclaim your worth. What you do need is to stop gaslighting yourself the way they did. Say it out loud. What they did was not okay. My pain is real. Even if they never say sorry, I still deserve to heal. That's not anger. That's clarity. That's the first step back to yourself. Why they come back like nothing happened, and what it really means. They disappeared, left you in the dark, hurt you, ignored you, denied your pain. And now, they show up again, as if none of it happened. A casual hey message, a like on your post, a familiar voice saying, I've been thinking about you. And your heart reacts, your mind spirals, your soul. Because this is where the confusion deepens. If they didn't care, why are they back? Let's talk about it. Not just emotionally, but psychologically, spiritually, and energetically. There's a myth many people carry. If someone comes back, it means the story isn't over. But here's the truth Jung hinted at. What returns unhealed is not love. It's a wound-seeking repetition. You're not in a love story. You're in a trauma loop. When they return like nothing happened, it's not always about love. It's often about control, access, and emotional convenience. Let's break that down. 1. The return is often about themselves. They're not coming back because they've had a moral epiphany. They're coming back because they're lonely. They miss your emotional labor. They want the version of you who didn't require accountability. They come back because you were home, even if they treated you like a hotel. To them, you were comfort without confrontation, affection without consequences. And now that their distractions have failed, they remember the way you made them feel, but not what they did to you. There's no apology, no real change, just a vague re-entry that says, I want access, without having to explain. 2. Emotional amnesia, how the avoidant mind works. Let's go deeper. People with avoidant attachment styles often engage in emotional amnesia. They literally dissociate from the intensity of emotional moments. So, when they come back acting like nothing happened, it's not always manipulation. Sometimes it's denial or repression. They don't feel the break the way you do. They file away emotional pain like a receipt they never intend to read. Jung would say, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life. And you will call it fate. Their unconscious is steering them, not remorse, not accountability, just a loop of self-soothing that looks like connection, but isn't. Free, the energetic cord that still exists on a soul level. When two people connect deeply, even in a toxic dynamic, an energetic cord is formed. You might feel it as random thoughts about them, sudden waves of emotion, dreams, synchronicities that pull your memory back to them. This isn't fantasy. It's energetic residue. Jung believed the psyche is not bound by time but loops, replays, returns. So, when they come back, you feel it in your gut, because energetically, the cord was never cut. But a cord isn't proof of love. It's a sign of unresolved emotion, and it keeps you trapped if you're not conscious of it. The danger of reaccepting silence. When someone hurts you, goes silent, then returns like nothing happened, and you accept that return without naming the pain. You're teaching your nervous system that neglect equals love. You're teaching your inner child to shrink, to comply, to fear abandonment more than disrespect. And slowly, your boundaries begin to dissolve. You might tell yourself, maybe this time it'll be different. Maybe they've changed. Maybe if I don't push too hard, it'll work. But that's not hope. That's survival psychology. That's trauma disguised as optimism. The real reason they return, a psychological breakdown. Let's be honest, they come back because they think they still can. They believe your door is still open, that your memory is soft, that your heart is still theirs to hold without having to earn it. But more than that, they come back because in their mind, the break wasn't real. They never fully acknowledged your hurt, so they never fully experienced the loss. This is called emotional object permanence, and some people don't have it. Once you're out of sight, your pain no longer exists to them. So, when they return, they expect to pick up where they left off. It's not love, it's entitlement. But what about you? This is the deeper question. Why does your heart still open? Why do you still feel something for someone who never truly made space for your pain? Because your mind wants closure. Because your inner child wants resolution. Because your soul wants to believe the hurt had meaning. And here's where it gets dangerous. Sometimes we would rather reopen a wound than accept that it will never be healed by the one who caused it. Carl Jung taught that what we repress doesn't die, it waits. So, when you accept their return without demanding recognition of the past, you're not reconnecting, you're reenacting. How to break the loop, a conscious response. You don't have to respond in anger. You don't have to block them out of revenge. But you do have to respond with clarity. Here's how. 1. Recognize the pattern. Ask, what happened the last time they returned? Don't confuse familiarity with safety. 2. Reconnect with your pain, not just your longing. It's easy to remember the good, but you must honor the version of you they hurt, not abandon them again. 3. Speak the truth, even if they can't handle it. You don't owe silence. You owe yourself honesty. 4. Reclaim the narrative. They may never validate your pain, but you can stop gaslighting yourself. Let their return be your reminder, not your restart. Carl Jung's final insight. People don't change by listening to lectures. They change when they become tired of their own nonsense. If they haven't changed, it's not your job to teach them. You are not a rehab center for emotional fugitives. You are not a sanctuary for someone who only visits when lonely. Your healing is sacred, your time is finite, and your peace is priceless. Let them come back if they want, but know that you're not the same version of yourself they once broke. You are healing, and healing doesn't beg for crumbs. Why you stay? The unseen bond to the one who hurt you. They were cold, they hurt you, they left, but somehow you stayed, not physically, emotionally. You still check your phone hoping they'll reach out. You still replay conversations trying to find what you missed. You still defend them to your own heart, even after they fractured it. So, let's ask the question most people are afraid to face. Why do you love someone who doesn't truly love you back? Not on the surface, not in your rational mind, but in your body, in your nervous system, in the part of you that was never truly safe growing up. Let's begin there. The origin of the bond, it wasn't them, it was before them. You didn't become this attached to them out of nowhere. This didn't start when they first broke your heart. It started long before that. In childhood, Jung once said, nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment, and especially on their children, than the unlived life of the parent. If you grew up in a home where love had to be earned, affection was inconsistent, or you felt invisible unless you were perfect, then your nervous system learned that love equals survival, and survival means staying connected, no matter how much it hurts. This is the blueprint of attachment trauma. You weren't seeking love, you were seeking familiarity. You were trying to rewrite a story that was written before you had the words to understand it. So, when someone comes along who reminds you of the chaos, the inconsistency, the withholding, something in you says, this feels like home. Not because it's safe, but because it's known. Trauma bonding, why pain feels like love. Let's get clinical for a moment. A trauma bond is a psychological and emotional attachment that forms between a victim and an abuser, created through cycles of intermittent reward and punishment. In other words, they give you just enough love to hook you, then withhold it to keep you chasing. And your brain responds. Every moment they pull away, your dopamine crashes. Every moment they come back, your dopamine spikes. You're not just emotionally invested, you're chemically addicted. It's not love you're chasing, it's a high. And just like any addiction, you begin to normalize the suffering for the sake of relief. The worst part, you believe the pain is proof it's real, because in your early wiring, love was always mixed with pain. So now, you don't recognize love unless it hurts. The inner child who keeps choosing them. Carl Jung gave us one of the most profound tools in modern healing, the concept of the inner child. And in this case, it's the child within you who keeps showing up to love someone who keeps abandoning you. Why? Because that child still believes, if I'm good enough, they'll stay. If I fix myself, they'll love me better. If I forgive them, maybe I won't be left again. You are not just grieving this person. You're grieving the version of you that never got the love they needed. The reason you stay emotionally tied to them isn't weakness. It's that your younger self is still trying to earn what was never freely given. And as long as you keep trying to earn love, you will settle for pain. Hope becomes a trap, the fantasy that they'll change. One of the cruelest parts of trauma bonding is the fantasy. You see the potential in them, the flashes of sweetness, the moment they looked at you like you were everything. And so you believe, maybe if I just wait a little longer, they'll realize. This is not love. This is trauma reenactment. You're trying to turn your pain into a redemption arc. But here's the truth. You can't build your healing on someone else's awakening. And the longer you wait for them to become who you need, the longer you delay becoming who you are. You are not here to be someone's turning point. You are here to be whole. Rejection rewinds the first abandonment. Let's go deeper into the emotional mechanics. When someone rejects you in the present, it often reactivates a deeper, earlier wound. Jung taught us that our psyche is layered like a house. The attic holds conscious thought. The basement holds our unconscious pain. Every time someone withdraws love, ignores your need, or ghosts you, your nervous system doesn't just register this person is gone. It registers, I've been left again. And if you never heal that first wound, you respond not just with heartbreak, but with terror. That's why it hurts so much. Why you panic, why you obsess. Because the wound is ancestral. It's archetypal. It's primal. And no matter how many times they prove they're not good for you, the child within you keeps running to the door, hoping this time it will be different. But it won't. Not until you decide to be different. So why do you stay? Let's be brutally honest. Because you're afraid you won't find someone else. Because you'd rather feel something than feel alone. Because your self-worth is tied to their opinion of you. Because somewhere inside, you still think you're the problem. But here's what Jung would remind you. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Not who they see, not who you pretend to be to keep them, but who you already are. Beneath the fear, beneath the ache, beneath the silence. You don't need to be chosen by someone who hurt you. You need to choose the part of yourself that stayed, even when they didn't. What you must do to break the bond. Here's what no one tells you. Healing from this doesn't begin with forgetting them. It begins with remembering yourself. Start with this. 1. Name the pattern. Call it what it is, a trauma bond. Not fate, not soulmate, not meant to be. 2. Speak to your inner child. Literally, you don't have to earn love anymore. You're already enough. 3. Grieve the fantasy. You are not grieving them. You are grieving the version of them you invented to survive the pain. 4. Redirect the longing. Every time you want them, ask, what is the younger me truly needing right now? And then give yourself that. Not a text, not a call, not validation from someone who disappeared. Give yourself presence, permission, peace. Because if you don't, you will keep recreating the pain until the pain becomes you. But it doesn't have to. Reclaiming wholeness, the healing path after betrayal. They didn't say sorry. They moved on like it was nothing. But inside you, something shattered. Not just your heart, but your sense of reality. You trusted them. You made excuses for them. You held on, even when it hurt. And when they walked away, they didn't just leave you behind. They left you wondering if you were ever worth staying for. But this moment right here, this pain that makes you question everything, this is not your ending. This is your awakening. From broken to becoming, the alchemy of suffering. Carl Jung taught us that wholeness is not achieved by perfection, but by embracing our totality. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And what is betrayal, if not darkness? A sudden severing, a rupture in the soul. But here's the paradox Jung saw so clearly. The wound is the womb. It is through the betrayal, not around it, that we find our deepest transformation. In other words, What broke you can also build you, but not as the same person, not as the version of you who tolerated less, who begged for crumbs, who confused love with pain. That version of you dies in the breaking, and something else, something wiser, clearer, and whole, rises from it. The healing begins when you choose yourself. Let's not romanticize the process. Healing doesn't feel like spa days and affirmations. It feels like grief, withdrawal, loneliness, but in the absence of their chaos, you begin to hear yourself again. That's where it begins. Ask yourself, where did I abandon myself to keep them? What did I silence just to be loved? What truth did I ignore because it hurt less than losing them? Those questions will lead you back to your own center, because healing is not about forgetting them. It's about remembering you. You're not healing for closure. You're healing for clarity. The shift from longing to boundaries. Let's get practical. There comes a day, and it often happens quietly, when you no longer hope they text back. You no longer rehearse what you'll say if they return, because something inside you clicks, not from bitterness, but from truth. You see them. You see the pattern. You see how little they gave. You see how much you bent. And with that clarity comes the gift you emphasized. Individuation, the becoming of one's true self. That's the moment you stop trying to get back what broke you, and instead start protecting what's been reborn within you. You set boundaries, not because you're angry, but because you're sacred. You stop chasing love. You start honoring it. And anyone who can't meet you there isn't meant to sit beside you. What real love looks like after healing. Here's the truth you never saw coming. Once you've healed, chaotic love no longer excites you. You don't crave intensity. You crave consistency. You don't want grand gestures. You want emotional safety. You don't chase, because you found home within yourself. And when real love enters, you'll know, because it doesn't rush. It doesn't confuse. It doesn't punish you with silence. It feels like peace. And at first, that peace may feel unfamiliar. You might even mistake it for boredom. But that's not boredom. That's your nervous system finally relaxing. You become the love you were waiting for. In the end, this story was never about them. It was about you. About the version of you that had to collapse, so the real you could stand. You don't need to prove your worth anymore. You don't need to win someone's love. You don't need to beg, fix, or overextend. You are not here to be someone's lesson. You are here to be loved. And that begins with you. Carl Jung once said, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. Now is the time to awake. If this message stirred something in you, if a part of you is ready to stop chasing and start choosing yourself, then let this be your sign. Save this video. Share it with someone who needs the reminder. Comment below, I choose peace over pain. And subscribe, not just to the channel, but to your own healing journey. Because they broke you. But you're about to become whole in a way you've never been before.